Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursaleen wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let me greet you with the Islamic greeting. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As we wish peace unto you, I have with me our friend, our brother, eminent scholar, Dr. Ameenah Bilal Phillips, who has come here, and we're thankful to him because the element of peace that he has brought with us to the Maldives is so befitting these days, where the word terrorism seems to crop up anywhere we look at, especially in the area of television and news, but the issue of terrorism seems to crop up where least expected. We as Muslims do not expect terrorism to be any part of our lives. But then, these days, sad to say, anytime you say terrorism, in some parts of the world, the word Islam keeps cropping up. Sad fact of life. What do you say to that, my brother?
Well, as you said, it's a fact of life today, and unfortunately, the background behind the various events which we refer to as terrorist-related events, many of these major events, Muslims are being improperly or incorrectly accused of being terrorists.
That feels like a slap in the face. How do you respond to this? I mean, obviously you travel around the world, and any airport you go to, I mean, especially if you go in the West, you might even get singled out for random observations. Mm-hmm. Have you had this happen to you?
Sure. Yeah.
How do you react to this? I mean, anytime you call yourself a Muslim, some people think that you are a terrorist. I mean, it's like a translation these days. Muslim equals terrorist. I mean, what is your response to that? Personally, I feel very insulted.
I do too, but of course, when you're moving around the world, I mean, you have to understand world opinion, what has led to it. Some of the blame does fall on the shoulders of our Muslim brothers.
So what has led to it?
Political issues. I think at the bottom of it is a cultural clash. I do subscribe to Samuel P. Huntington's theory of clash of civilizations, though it's been sort of demystified, it's been attacked from many different corners. I do feel that the root premise that he put forth was in fact true, that there is a cultural clash. A civilization, the Islamic civilization, something fundamentally different from Western civilization, is at odds. From the Islamic perspective, we can coexist. We can function with other nations, and
doesn't the word civilization presuppose that?
It should. But in our times, Western civilization has not been satisfied with coexisting. It has felt itself duty-bound to impose their cultural values on the world. And as such, it means you can't coexist now because you're wrong. Your way of life is just, savage, it is backwards, it's this, that, the other. You need to be, upgraded up to where we are. Mm-hmm. The evolutionary ladder there, we're at the top, so we must have be doing the right things to get there. So therefore, you all need to fall in line. So this kind of an approach leads to conflict, where people are able to appreciate other civilizations. You can just look at the difference between Islam when it spread and how it absorbed civilizations and their knowledge and their people and their customs, and the people continue to coexist with them. And then you look at the colonial era when Europe spread out over the world. How did they deal with these other civilizations? They destroyed them. They smashed them. They raped them. It was a whole different approach. You have nothing. We have come to civilize you. This
the natives.
The natives. This is a whole different approach. So this is that clash approach. Vast difference. So much so that the Pope, remember a couple of years back, he apologized to the world for the savagery which happened in the past in the name of Christianity.
I thought that was pretty decent.
Yeah?
I thought that was pretty decent, step in the right direction.
Yes, and I wish that more people had heard it, that to put these things in the proper context, because we've always been the ones accused of spreading Islam by the sword, when in fact it was Christianity which was spread by the sword.
Islam is still spreading.
Yes.
I don't see the
no
sword.
swords. About 400 people a day are accepting Islam in the U.S. This is the latest statistics, and there are no Muslim soldiers there holding up any swords.
Exactly. But then we say that some of our brothers are to blame.
Well, there are certain incidents that have happened, whether it's blowing up of airplanes, we could say suicide bombings, World Trade Center, where it can be, Muslims can be caught up in that, etc. These acts that have happened, these are terrorist acts, no doubt. Mm-hmm. We don't have any ifs, ands, and buts about it. So that now tends to give justification for blaming and labeling us as terrorists. But of course, people tend to forget the history of the last century. I mean, for me, whenever I discuss this with people, I say the greatest terroristic act which was done in the history of humankind that we know of was Nagasaki and Hiroshima. This is the greatest terroristic act. This was a bomb eradicating hundreds of thousands of people's lives who are not involved in military conflict directly. This is against the civilian population. What is that but terror? You put terror in the hearts of these people to bring them to the truce, to submit and to surrender. That is the greatest act. We have nothing compared to it.
But then when it's done by a state, it's not terrorism, is it?
Yeah, it's state terrorism. That's what it becomes. We don't want to put that name on it.
What was the fine dividing line, the gray line between war and state-sponsored terrorism?
It's very fine. And, there's a wonderful picture that I use whenever I'm giving talks on misunderstandings about Islam and terrorism. There's a picture which is on the internet. It has four what they used to call Red Indians or Native Americans. Mm-hmm. They're all standing there with rifles. It's an old picture from maybe the 1800s. And it said on the top, Homeland Security. And on the bottom it said, fighting terrorism since 1492.
That's a good one.